Hello and welcome to this special video where I will show you how to make races for Midtown Madness. This will be a full tutorial, so I will be showcasing all the details you need to know to properly make your own races. So let's get into it. So I created this folder called MM1 4U, and it will be available for download when this video is up. So we continue to Lars's RaceMaker. Then we open the index file with any Explorer like Firefox or Google Chrome. So here we see in the Chicago map many black dots, and those are all on intersections. And the opponents in Midtown Madness drive by following a logical sequence of intersections. So I will be giving you a basic example to showcase how the race making process is done. So I click on this one and I get some code, and then we click to the next one and we see this blue line forming. Then we click on here and here, and we would like to have our finish here. So the starting position will be here. So now the computer knows by following those black dots or those intersections which route it needs to take. So we copy our new code with Ctrl C, copy. Then we minimize this program, and then we go to MM1 beta because we will actually be using the beta version for editing our races. So that will be new for a lot of you, but very interesting. So here you see the regular folders and some new folders for most of you. So we will go into race because our race files are located over there. Then we go to Chicago, and then we find race 0. So what I always do is I click on any of those files and then I just type it. So race 0, and it will automatically find it for me. So race 0 actually represents the first checkpoint race. So in that case it's beginner's luck, and we have 3 files. I will now focus on the first 2. So this one pertains to amateur mode, and this one pertains to professional mode. So let's open the ladder. So we will see here is the details for the race file. So here we see opponents, and we got 6 of them, and here's some cars and some other stuff. But let's get rid of the not interesting part first. So we will talk about this later, about road exceptions. Then the police that will be chasing us, which is not relevant for now in this beginning example. And I will delete the other opponents as well. So we have just one. And you see it is a VP Mustang 99. So that's very similar to the Ford Mustang we know. But I have a list for that, so you can get acquainted with the code for cars that we can put in the race file. It is over here. So list for opponent cars. So here we see that we have the VP Mustang represents the Ford Mustang GT, and the VP Ford would result in a Ford F50. So after some playing around, you will know this by heart and you won't need to look at this list anymore, but for those new of you, this can be very useful. So now we go back, we go to the beta, we go to race, Chicago, then we, was it still opened or not? Yes, it was still open. So okay, we have our car, and then we have this. So it would mean opponent 1 root 60, and then this is just something arbitrary. So let's locate this file. So again, what do? I click somewhere and then I just type it. So, and then we need to be precise if we have the correct one. So it's this one in this case. So then we open it with Notepad++, which I forgot to mention. So we go to software and we install one of these two. We really need it for editing races. It is like Notepad, but plus plus. It will make things a lot easier. So install that program before we continue. So race, we go to the opponent file. Here you go. We open it with Notepad++. And now here we see the code by Angel Studios. Actually, it's the root for beginner's luck that Microsoft has made. So what we will do is we have created our own code, which we can see over here. Then we will copy the coordinates, because they're actually coordinates. And then we copy them over. So this line, I believe it's not important, but I just always leave it in. And what is important is that you have one empty line, because otherwise the game will crash for some weird reason. So make sure you keep this empty line. Then we click on this X, so we make sure that it is saved, and we press yes. The same for this one. Here it doesn't matter how many open spaces there are, but you can just do this if you want to. So we have the Ford Mustang, we edited our stuff, and we press X to save it. This is something else. So now we're almost done. Let's go to the IA workouts, which is something I made a while ago. We'll get back to it in some later parts. So then we will copy. Now we can actually copy all 3 of them. So Ctrl C, and then we go to race, Chicago, and then we press Ctrl V. And then we will also overwrite these files. So what this does is that for the first race, beginner's luck, in this instance, I have said that the traffic is 0, the police is 0, the weather is always sunny. So this will just be something convenient. You'll see what I mean later. So okay, we have all our stuff to begin. Then we need to actually compile the core R, which is yeah, just like a zip file or a RAR file. So what we will do, I have something very handy. At the bottom I have a compiler.bat. So we will left click it, and then we will press edit. And what we see here is just a bunch of lines. So what is important here is what you will do is you will, in your folder, click here, Ctrl A, Ctrl C, and then yeah, and then we will copy over this part, and then Ctrl C, right? And then just this is for compiling or making our changes final within the real game. Then we will do the same for this. We again press Ctrl V, And then for midtown.exe, we will actually replace it with our test1560.exe. So that will be test156.exe. Right, now we save it. So now let's click this and make our changes final and immediately start up the game. So it is compiling our changes. So here we are in the menu. And now if we go to checkpoint race, then you can see that there is no traffic, it's sunny weather, there are no cops, and this is done for every race. So that allows for easy and quick testing, in my opinion. So now you can see that the opponents have disappeared and I'm still on the starting position of beginner's luck, which was not intentional, but I forgot to change my waypoints. But what we can do in the beta is something very interesting. So we resume the game and we will press Shift O and you will see what I mean. It's very interesting. And what do we see here? Our Ford Mustang. It's actually the opponent driving, so this is the route that we have just created. And it goes right. And here's the finish line. Oh, a bit buggy. But we can see that the route that we have created was implemented successfully. So this will be the basis for creating our own races. Okay, let's get back to the drawing board. We want our starting position to be close to the opponent. So what I usually do is we go to the opponent file, which is op1 r60. And then we copy this code. Let's close it. And then we go to race 0 waypoints. So the third file for each race is the player's waypoints. So let's open it. Then we will copy it. And what I usually do, so we care about the starting position so we can race along in our newly created race while we have our finish. Okay, great. But I usually just take out the other ones. So this will be one checkpoint, and yeah, let's make something random out of it. 1,000, 0, and then minus 500. So it has to be in between, I believe, somewhere like minus 1,000 and 1,000, just to be safe, because those are the outer boundaries of the Chicago. These actually represent the X value, so from left to right, and this is the Y value, so from top to bottom. But okay. We will talk about the second value a little bit later, but it is less important. So for our starting position, we also need to take in account the fourth value. So it is separated by a comma. So this is the first value, second value, third value, and then the fourth value, which in this case is 0, and it represents the rotation of your car. So let me visualize that for you. So now we go to IA workout, Then we go to waypoint pictures, and then we go to checkpoint rotation, and here I've visualized it a little bit for you. So we open this. So degree 0 stands for moving north. So if we have degree 45, you can see it's a bit shifted to the right. Then degree 45 is shifting to the other side. Well, we have 90 to the right, and then minus 90 to the left. Well, etc. with some other values. But in this case, we have our race, which goes from north to south and then to the left. So we want our car to be facing south. So our car is facing south here, so that is either minus 180 or just 180. So let me just fix that quickly and put it to 180. Then we will also save this file, and then we'll do our trick again. Yep. And then we do the compiler, and then it should be fixed. So here we see we're actually under the Ford Mustang, but we are facing the right way. We are facing south, so that is an improvement. But let's say we are happy with our route, with our race. It's relatively short, but we want to alter our starting positions. We don't want to start on this intersection, but we would like to start, what should we say? We would like to have a car on every road. So one here, and then one here. So we can actually do that quite easily. But first of all, you might be wondering how I get this view. Well, you can change views by pressing Z, like this. And then if you press V, we go to our helicopter view. And actually the beta has another function, which is if you press V another time, then our camera just floats freely. I mean, if you change it by pressing keys on your keyboard, so your car will also drive, which is quite funny. But you can actually freely roam the Chicago map. Oh, I'm sleeping with the fishes. But I guess you have got the idea what that is about. So how do we change our starting positions then? So we press P. And ta-da! What do we see on the screen? Let's make it a bit readable. So we see POS, which stands for position, and then we see 504, 348 AC, minus 170 and minus 173, and then we see the ID. So the first value is the X value. So let me show you. So X is from left to right. So now we're going from right to left, and you can see the value change. You see a decrease in this case. And then the third value is the Y value. So you should see that X stays the same, and then Y changes. And then we have the second value, which is also I talked about in the race points file, which is less important. It's the height in 3D. So let's press C again. Now it's 4, and now it's 2. We're lower to the ground. and now we press C again and we're actually at a high 1. So if you press V, if you press V, you see we're back in the helicopter view and it bumped up to 15. So now you also know what that value represents. Then the fourth value is actually the rotation, which I talked about before. So we're almost facing completely to the right, so that's almost 90 degrees, but in this case it's 89 degrees. So if we move to the left, let's see if we can get it 0. So we're facing north and our degree is now 1 or 0. So this is super useful for getting the starting positions of your player and making proper checkpoints. Then the fifth value, which let's get into that a bit later, but it represents the road ID. So a road has an ID, like whatever. You can, for instance, you can do in a race that one road has a lot of traffic and then another road has no traffic. It's interesting, but it's something important in the later stages of the game. So let's get back to our process of finalizing our race. Actually, we're pretty far. So what do? We find our starting position for, yeah, let's make this a player starting position. We're happy with this position, and now we actually go to the lowest view. So you see the X and the Y change. So this is actually our value that represents the exact location. And what I have to do, I have to write down on a paper the first value, so 528, and then I write down the third value from the 405, and then the fourth value, which is minus 158. But there's actually a feature in the beta which allows you to like print it and send a location to your Midtown Madness directory, which you do by pressing Shift and then P. So it says position 1 is saved. So usually in your it will put out a file, a short text file with the exact coordinates that you just printed out in your Midtown Madness directory, but for some reason it is not working for me. It doesn't show any val. I can't find it, so I just do it manually, which is fine. But if it works for you, that is a great option, of course. So let's get our second value for the starting positions of the players, of the opponents I shall say. This will be then the first starting position for the opponent, because I just decided that. So writing down the values, and important for opponents, we do not need to write down the false value, so the AZ value, because opponents they don't work with rotation. Like you can set your own rotation, like whatever you like, you can manually adjust it, but the opponents will just face directly to what the road is facing. So if you put them here, they will actually look this way. If you put them here, they will look this way, like a little bit different. It will not be that they are on this road and they will face like this. It just won't happen. So they will automatically face aligned with what the white stripes are doing. So you do not have to worry about the false value. Okay, with that being said, where were we? I'm not really sure, but whatever. Let's create our second opponent value. Just gonna write it down. Update, and then yeah. Okay, then let's get another one. sure to go back to the lowest view. And then we have this. So okay, we have 3 opponents. I think that's enough for an example. So let's get back in a second. Okay, so let's make some starting positions and add some opponents. So we go to race 0. So what do we do now? So we want to change the starting positions and add opponents. So what I do is I scroll a little bit up, and then I see some opponents fell, so I'm gonna take we're gonna add 3 opponents, so 1, 2, 3. Okay, we're gonna steal those ones. So we're gonna make this a little bit smaller. Then we're gonna scroll up. And if you happen to have 2 monitors, this will become very useful. And then, well, let's be a little bit fancy with the cars. Let's make a beetle, which is a bug. And then we do up 9, R70, C29. Let's make a Cadillac, which is a VP Caddy. Then we do up 8, R70, C29, and then perhaps VP panels. Up 8, R60, C28. Always double check if you've entered the things correctly. Okay, then we change the opponents to 4. And then let's open all those files simultaneously. Select, open, and we still have our other file open, so we have everything open in a tab, which is very useful. And then one important note is that we have created our arrays like this. So we're now making our starting positions here. So it means that if we want to start here, we're starting in between intersections. Sorry. So this one and this one. So because we are going from north to south, this will be our first intersection, which is now our very first line. So that is this one. So we shall press enter, because we need to keep it. If we were to change this value for starting positions, we would just mess things up. So we copy this value, and then we use the values that you might find in a newly created positions. That's, oh wait, is it actually working? Positions, right, so it actually worked. Okay, great. Well, let's just do this then, because it's easy. Okay, so let's put this first value in for our starting position of our opponent. One thing that I noticed when looking at this code, it contains 8 commas. So here 1, 2, and then we have 8. But for opponent values, we actually need 9. So let's add 1 more comma. So we just do 0, 0. We just add that. Alright, so let's continue to the other ones. So we will then copy this value. We put it to one of our new opponents, and I've actually written down the coordinates as I just told you. So we can keep the second one the same, and then minus 38, and the rotation does not matter. And now we have 9 values. Okay, great. We copy this again, and then we go to another value I wrote down. Then this one stays the same. Nope, it does not stay the same. 003. Okay, great. Then we copy this again. And then the last value that I wrote down was 44. And then minus 104. And of course, this is just a decimal or a dot. So, I mean, you can change this to 0. But the actual location, it will barely change. So, I mean, yeah, it practically really doesn't matter. So important. So we've adjusted our first opponent while keeping this very important intersection. Then the second, the third, and the fourth. And we also had to do our starting position. But let's get back to that in a moment. So now we will save it one by one. We will save it. Make sure there's one space underneath. Save it. Save it. And then we make sure everything here is correct. Okay, then we save it. This we don't really need it anymore. And then we will go back to the compiler. And then we can check what we've done, if it was any good. Okay, so now we're back. So I changed everything except my own starting position again. I guess I'm not perfect, but let's see how the other opponents have done, and we can go back to Shift O and see if I position them as I intended to. So we press F2 to resume or pause the game. So Shift O. Alright, I see a Cadillac on the position that I wanted. And then... oh. Let's redo that. Okay, so I've done a pretty decent job. So the Ford Mustang is in the location as I intended. The VP Caddy is in the location which I intended. And then the VP Bach or the Beetle is in the exact location as I intended. But this one I kind of messed it up. I probably put in the wrong value. It's okay though. Let's see how this race plays out and if we are any fun of it. Don't hit me. Okay, hit me. Whatever. Okay, go to the Mustang. The Thanos is winning, of course. And we're finished. So this is our race. This is how we do it. So I actually deleted the files for this race by accident, but that is not really a problem to continue the process. So we recall that our route is as follows, and we need to create checkpoints for it. So what I usually do is I take a screenshot of the route we have. So I do that with the knipprogramma in Dutch, but anything will do. And then we take a different color pen, well, red in this case. So we know our starting position is somewhere here, then the finish line is here, and then we would like a checkpoint here, I suppose, and here, I suppose. So if you have a longer race, which I suppose you do, I suggest you try to minimize the amount of waypoints that you will need, because it actually takes a little bit of effort to get them correct. So I would not do one here and one here. Just keep it easy for yourself. And now I can't erase them anymore. But yeah, we're gonna use this one and then this one. So let's make them. Okay, we're back in the game, and I positioned myself on the first location of the waypoint that we want to acquire. So what I do is I position my car on the very middle of the road, and then we go back to this view, and then I write down the values on a piece of paper, and I will write down all 4 of them, especially the rotation is important, which is minus 180. So we have the first one, great. You can also do the Shift B method, but I find this a bit easier. Let's go nicely to the middle. Alright, this will do. Write it down. And then for the finish line, it was right about here, because I think they end on the intersection, so it would be this. So I plugged in the values that I retrieved. So one important thing is that I actually forgot to go into the cockpit mode. So the second value was 4. So I changed it to 0 to make them level to the road. These values are approximately correct, like they only deviate by a little bit. Sorry, the third value, the Y value. Yeah, we see the 4th value for our rotation, which is great. So one important note is that if the program outputs a rotation of 0 for this value, then you should always change the 0 to 0.1, because if it is 0, the rotation will actually be faced directly to the next checkpoint. So it might be not entirely as you wanted it to be. Sorry if that's a bit confusing, but if it's 0, just change it to 0.1 and then you have fixed the problem. And then for the 5th value, which actually becomes important here, it is the width. So the you can see I put 18 here, but let's visualize that for you. So we go to the Midtown Madness folder, we go to IA workouts, waypoint pictures, checkpoint width, and then we click on the pictures. So here we see that if we put in a width of 10 for the value I showed you earlier, then we get a relatively small checkpoint. So that is useful for us to know. So this one has 2 roads, as you can see, still with 10. And now we see a value of 14 over here, over there, and you see that the checkpoint has gotten broader. So this would work for 4 roads in this case. So this shows you that the difference from 10 to 4 is pretty significant. So that can help you with designing the checkpoints. Then we go to the 3rd example, which is 20. With 20, this is actually for the larger roads, so that is important to keep in mind. So we kind of have to backtrack or look at our race design to decide which road we're at. So this seems to be the broader roads actually. So I mean 20 works, but I've put in 18, which should also be sufficient. So with our new code, let's save this, of course, then recompile it, and let's see how we've done. Here we are, the first checkpoint. It looks perfect, good rotation, good width, good position. Then let's go to the second one we've created. also perfect. So with 18 or 20 would work in those cases. And then the finish line, yeah, it's pretty much perfect. So now we would like to determine the weather we use for our races and the traffic and pedestrians if we want to. So we go to race again, and now we type MMR. So we see the Blitz data and the circuit data, which I've shown you in the very beginning to put everything to sunny. But we can edit it, of course, to get snowy weather and raining and whatever. So time for a little bit explanation. So in our case, we only have one race, so this can all be deleted. And we see the car type, the time of day, the weather, the opponents, the cops, ambient, pedestrians, number of laps, time limit, difficulty, all things that should be familiar with you. So what I do is I always start from pro opponents, which is set to 8, and you can always leave it to 8. Even if your race contains 4 opponents, you can leave it to 8 because it will only load the opponents that you have provided it. For checkpoints races in the future, I would put it to 5 if you have 5 opponents, because it will show in the selection menu 8, but in reality your game will just load 5 if you have 5. So from pro opponents, we backtrack to the left, so pro weather, and then we have pro time of day. So let me show you what the deal with that is. So let's go to IA workout again. I've quickly made a picture for that. So we go to this file, choosing weather, and again we see the time of day, and we see, well, the weather conditions actually. So it's very easy. So this represents 0, 1, 2, 3, and the same for here, 0, 1, 2, 3. So what is first in our list? We have pro opponents, and then we have pro weather. So this one, the pro weather. So let's look back. The weather, so that's the bottom one. And for our race, we want to have in the pro mode, we want to have cloudy weather, so that is 0, 1. So here we will fill in 1. And we would also like it to be, well, around noon, so that is this one, so that is also 1, which it already was. So if you want to have night and you want to have snow, both of these values will be 3. Now let's do the same thing for amateur mode, because yeah, we also need to make an amateur mode, of course. So what I would like for amateur mode is, well, this one, morning and sunny. So that actually will be 0, 0. So let's backtrack. Okay, 8. Okay, this one is already 0. Then this one is 1, so let's change it to 0. Okay, so that is complete. So what's more things are interesting for us. Now we have pro opponents, and we move to the right. There we see pro cops. So pro cops will actually do the following: is if you put 1, this bar will be full, and if you put 0.5, it will be half. What I recommend is if you want to put cops in your race, then you just put this value to 1, And then later, if you will put if you're gonna put cops, if you're actually gonna be putting cops in your race as well, then all 3 of them will spawn. So you put in 3, then all 3 of them will spawn, given that you put this to 1. If you put this 2.5, then theoretically only 1.5 of them would spawn. So this is just what, yeah, it's not really that interesting. Just always put it to 1 if you have any cops. But we don't. Let's keep it 0. Then the next value is pro ambient, which is the amount of traffic, and this also works in the same case. So if we have 1, the bar will be completely full, so to the max, and if we put 0.3, then it will be about a third, and the same idea works for pedestrians. So I mean, I can do it to show you what's going on. So pro cups 0, pro ambient 0.3, and we would also like to overrun, maybe not overrun, some pedestrians. So see, Angel Studios put 0.0. I mean, that's fine. We just do 3. And then we have the pro number of laps, which is the next value, which is logically set to 0. If we have circuit races, we can put it to a maximum of 10. Usually it's 3, of course, but yeah, it's a checkpoint race, so we put it to 0. Then the value after that is the pro time limit. This is only relevant in Blitz races, and it is measured in seconds. So if you put 100 here, then we will have 60 seconds or 1 minute 40. Well, we don't need that. And then we have pro difficulty, and that is 1, and it's just basically saying, okay, for this line we use pro mode or whatever. And so this is how it works. I think I explained everything that is necessary. So you have the pro part and you have the amateur part. I explained about circuit races with laps, and I explained with the cops that always put it to 1 if you have any cops, and then with the time limit for Blitz races. So I don't think we'll get back to this anymore, but if you have any questions, then let me know. But yeah, all aspects covered. So we will save this. We will save that. So let's quickly check if our changes have been successful. So remember, we were on the first race, beginner's luck, and what do we see? We have the correct weather conditions, then we have about one third of the traffic density, pedestrians, and no cops. So this looks great. Then check amateur mode, and again we have morning and sunny. So this is how you do that. So the goal now is to build a new race locale or a duplicate city. So it is advised that we collect all of the opponent files, and those are these. Just taking a different race at the moment. Just as an example, so we have the opponent files, then we have the data for amateur mode. In this case it's this, and then professional mode, where you see they're quite similar, just the cars are different. So we have the waypoints for the circuit races for the player, and then the data which we talked about earlier. So we're gonna copy all of this, and we're gonna go to the Midtown folder, to race locale build, then to shop 1, and here we see a bunch of folders. So we're actually gonna go into race, and now you see custom races here, and now you see just an example of mine earlier. We don't need it anymore, so we'll delete it. And then we copy over our new race that we've made. And here it is. So what we need to do now is we go to tune, and then we go to custom races.c info. And let me turn it off. So what we see now is the following. This is just an example. So what do we want to call our new race locale? I'm gonna call it a simple race pack, since it includes only one race. You see the custom races, those are the names of the folders. They need to be consistent. In our case, we have 0 Blitz races. We have, well, because the example is a circuit race, we have 1 circuit race. So let's do that. And we have 0 checkpoint races. And here you can see how the names are defined for the races. So you have the name without any space, and then this sign. And this is just an example. So we'll take away this, and I believe you have to type none, and we have no checkpoint races, so none. And then we'll give our race, our circuit race in this case, a name. So I'm just gonna call it simple race. And then we can save it. Make sure the spacing is all correct. There are no deviating parts. So let's save this. And we don't need this anymore. Go away. Okay, so we're in the tune folder. And what we do now is we open CMD and we type the following. We type run and then 3 exclamation marks, and then we type the name of our R file, which you see in a second. I'm gonna call it hi YouTube, like this, and then we press enter. Let's wait for a second. See something happening. Okay, we have built something amazing. Then we go back. And then we should be able to find it in build over here, and you see 2 files, and we're gonna copy these over and we're gonna put it in our Midtown Madness directory like this. And the fun thing is, this is just like a 9 megabyte file, and we can put it up for download for other people to play, so that is like really convenient and easy. So let's go to the game and see how we've done. Let's see. We are in the menu. We click on race locale. And here we see Chicago simple race pack. We press done. And we see no blitz races, no circuit races, but hey, we have our simple race. In this case, it was 4 laps and 6 opponents, and this is all changed. Don't worry about it, but I think you get the gist. Here we go. We have implemented our custom race successfully. And this race will be available for download later, but I'm gonna end it here. So there's still a few things that we need to talk about, and what I have on my list now are blitz races, circuit races, the question if we can take shortcuts over the grass, then we haven't covered police, and then some traffic exceptions. So again, let's get back into the race file, and then we'll take an example of a blitz race. So this is Dearborn Dash. Let me open all 3 of them. And what we see here for blitz races, we have 0 opponents. So if you have none, you put 0. We have 0 traffic, police, sorry. Traffic exceptions will come in a bit. I believe you can change this value to 100 or 200, but it will not change the speed of the traffic. This is actually supposed to be the speed of the traffic, but I think it is standardized, so nothing is going to change here. And so we haven't really talked about this value, which is present in every race file, so also for circuit races. It's present also in all of them. So what do we discuss about here? If we put 0, 0, but we were to put the if you put this value to 0, but then in Blitz data, for example, you would put the traffic, where's the traffic? You would put the traffic up to 1 so that the bar is full, then you would still not have any traffic. So this one is really quite important. And what I've noticed with races that it's usually about 0.1 is decent traffic density. If you go to 2, you will notice some difference. Then 3 and 4, it will get more packed than packed. If you do 1, which is totally possible, then usually you have a lot of traffic. You can also put it higher, but yeah, just experiment with it a little bit. But I would say for average 0.1 or 0.2, and the traffic here and the traffic here, they're a bit different. So I would say this is really density, and I would say this one is volume, but it's a bit up for discussion really. So for Blitz races, to conclude that part, well, we need this version, the Pro mode, we need the Amateur mode, then we need the waypoints for the Blitz, of course, which we discussed. And I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but the regular Blitz races have 4 waypoints, but it is possible to actually put 5 waypoints in there, which is the absolute maximum. So we can push it up by 1, but more will not work. So here you can see there's right, left to the time, so time limit. There's number of laps, so that is the number of checkpoints in that case. So I hope the process of making Blitz race is completely clear. Now let's create a example circuit race so you can see how that is done. Now suppose we want to have the starting position over here. We can find it with the learned methods. So we can just imagine that, and then we go from here. We want a race to be like this, 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 and then this. And then we would like to end here as well. So what we do is we go to an opponent file. Let's say we take circuit 1, and we take yeah, I made them all the same for testing purposes for something else, but let's find that opponent. Op1 CO27. Okay, so what we do for circuit races is actually pretty easy. So suppose again we have the value starting position here, and then we have the value for the end of the race here. So the route is complete because it will make a loop. And for the player waypoints, if our start is here, then the finish line will automatically also be here. So we do not have to worry about that, I believe. However, for opponents, we have the starting position, and when they have made their round, so they've completed this this intersection on the last lap, we also want to have them end here. So that's why we need a double value over here. And that is how circuit races are done. Now for races where you want to be chased by some cops, I'm taking tough turns and a tunnel as an example, race 1. So we see here the police, we have VP cops, so 4 cops. And here it's just what we know already, the X value, the Y value in 3D, then the actual Y value. And then the fourth value is the rotation. So here it's -1, and here it's 180. And after that we have 2 more values, which are the O and an 8, and here a 4. So here they talk about start mode, start lane, and patrol route. However, to be honest, I'm not really clear if changing this or this changes anything. So if someone knows, then feel free to let me know. Also in the past, I've been able to change the scope to like a Ford Mustang or a Freightliner, but when I tried it now, it doesn't work. But it was possible in some way, so that might be explained later on. So for cops, we do not have the restriction of having a maximum of 8 opponents. So for opponents, we can have 8, and that is the absolute maximum. There is no way of fixing that, unfortunately. I would love to, but doesn't seem possible. But for cops, there's a different restriction. The game starts to crash around 20, 22, 23. I think 23 is the maximum that I have ever had. So yeah, you can put in quite a lot of cups if you want, but unfortunately the maximum that will chase you is 3. So that is the topic of police covered. Then the next topic will be road exceptions. So I think you remember from the many examples that I've shown you, is that when you're driving and you press P, you will see a bunch of values, and one of them is ID, and it outputs a number, and it changes when you drive on a different road, so a different part of the road. Just to show you that quickly. So this piece of road will have a value 100, and this road will have a different value, and this road will have a different value. And the idea is that maybe you would like to have a race going straight down, but on the beginning half you do not want any traffic. So you have to open the game, then press P and figure out which road IDs cover this part. And then what you have to do is you open your race of interest, which is tough turns and a tunnel, for instance, and then you figure out how many road IDs you have figured out. You've written them down, and then you plug in the values. The first value is a road ID, and then the density, so the traffic density will be 0, so that implies no traffic, and the speed limit is just a placeholder for 50, like we don't care about it. And then for let's say the second half, you do not care about exceptions, like whatever you put into for traffic density and volume, that will just play out. However, you could also do something else. So let's say that the last three values pertain to the bottom part. Then let's say you want extra traffic, so you can put it to 0.5, which is quite heavy, 0.5, and then you have made the exception to put more traffic in the game that you regularly put. I mean, you can also do to 1.5 to go really crazy. I believe changing this value really doesn't do anything, but if it does for you, then feel free to let me know. So that is about traffic exceptions. If you really want to craft your race to perfection. So now I want to discuss with you the possibility of taking shortcuts over the grass for opponents, which can be very interesting. So I put the game in software renderer so I can clearly see the lines which come up when you press Shift M. So we see how Chicago is programmed for the opponents. So green and blue will be drivable lines for the opponents, and red will be the intersection, which is very important. You cannot skip any of them. So let's go into helicopter view, and now suppose we would like to cross this piece of grass. So we actually see that Angel Studios has made it possible to cut this grass because there is a line for that. So what we could do in this case, what the plan of action is that we, in our race making process, we make sure we get this waypoint from Lars's race maker, and then the next waypoint which we will put in the game will be this one, and the game will understand understand to go over the grass, and the same analogy holds for this part. So the next intersection will be this. So one note about this, because this seems quite easy, this is very buggy. Like, do not expect it to work all the time. So I think if I were to start a race over here with a slow car, so when it is reaching the intersection it might go 30 miles per hour. It will actually not take the shortcut, but it will go straight, because for some reason it thinks it is a better route. So in that case what you should do is you should start the race far back, and you should make the car go at very high speed, and then when it tries to launch into the grass it will actually take the route, opposed to going in and then deciding to go left again. So that is kind of how this works. Now let me show you some other areas of interest. So this grass can also be driven over. However, yeah, okay, let's imagine this water fountain was not here, and we would like to cross from here to that part. Well, that is simply not possible, because there is no line here. It simply means that if you will put this intersection and then to the next one, the game will crash, and it will crash every single time. But there are a few possible shortcuts that you could use, so feel free to experiment with that a little bit and see how the game is built up. I would like to make a couple more notes, so you don't have to waste your time. So I've tried making the, let's see if I can go there. So for example, I tried to make the opponents go over the max field, but this is also very buggy. Like the lines that they have put in, it doesn't seem to work properly. What you can do, however, which does work, is you can make the starting position over here. You can make the starting position over here, and then it will drive straight. Just gonna show this quickly. And then it will take this turn, and then you can go to the right, for example. But if you put it to the left, and then decide, okay, you know, I want to make a nice circuit race out of this by putting the intersection here, and with hopes of going this way again. Well, that is not going to work. I've tested it, doesn't work, too bad. What also doesn't work is the next part. So you cannot make them go like this. So if you want to have a circuit race, for example, going all around, it's not going to work. What you can do, however, is for any race for that matter, you can have them start here and they will drive fine, and then they will leave this part and go to the next part of the road that you have programmed. Go straight, go left, whatever, but you cannot make them loop, which is quite a pity. So that nearly concludes all of my knowledge about race making in Midtown Madness 1. I've come up with a few more things, and that is if you want to put buses into the game, into your race, that will work with the condition that you also have at least one Freightliner in the game, so a VP semi. I have no idea why, but if you put a bus in one of your races without a Freightliner, it will crash. So make sure to put that Freightliner also in there. Then maybe you've seen in one of my videos that I put opponents in Blitz races. That is of course also possible. Now for the last fact, suppose we have a race, a checkpoint race. It goes from here to here and here, and we would like to finish right here in the grass. Is that actually possible? Well, the answer is yes. And what we have to do is we put the intersections here that we need as usual, and we notice that if we would like to end here, we skip a few intersections. However, this is not a problem, because for the last, well, waypoint in this case, because this is not an intersection, the opponents will drive directly to their last coordinate. So you go from north to south, and this will be your last coordinate, and they will drive directly, hopefully without hitting any trees, directly over here, and it doesn't matter if they skip any waypoints. So that can be very interesting to play around with. This then concludes the full tutorial. I know it was long, but I hope it was easy to understand, and I look forward to playing your races either in single player or multiplayer with us in the Discord channel. So for now, rest me one thing, and that is to thank you for watching.